everybody. Welcome back to another week of Sports and Ish with Misty V and Vince Edwards. We hope you all have had an amazing week. Today is the official day for the open agency market to begin. How exciting is this? Vince, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good. How you doing, Misty?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah. Yeah. As you stated previously, we got a lot to talk about, especially with free agency market going on. This has been a whirlwind for the start of the basketball free agency. There's a lot of guys opting in, opting out. I think the biggest opting in right now that everyone's talking about is James Harden opting in.
Right.
We kind of figured that this is going to happen. We talked about it a lot, but the most interesting thing to see is it went from the Sixers and the Suns as the suitable people to land James, and now it has become, that was Brad Bill, so now it has become them trying to come agreements with both sides, his agency, himself, his representation, and their front office, which I think he has a pretty good relationship with them.
Yeah.
So now it's between the Clippers and the Knicks, because there's word around that he, what Jalen Green has said in a podcast, James didn't like that. So I'm not too sure how confirmed, how legit those sources are. I'm not going to get into all the he say. I just know that's what's floating around right now. I don't know if you got a chance to catch the podcast. Jalen Green went on to Paul George's podcast, and they were just kind of talking because they heard the speculations themselves, and they became a topic of conversation. And Paul George kind of brought it up to the simple fact that he didn't think Houston should bring James back because they have moved on, and basically called Jalen Green the king of Houston at the time because he really is the face of the franchise right now. And he's been going through the fire, the ringer. They've been sending double teams at him. He's became the main focal point. They thought it'd be a good idea for him to work it out, work through it before bringing someone else back. And Jalen Green made a comment that it could hinder his progress. But at the same time, he also said he could learn from it as well. But he would much rather just stay his own man and do his own thing. So I think it got a little messy in there. So I think we can X out the James Harden back to Houston going on right now. I'm honestly shocked to hear the Knicks be into the conversation. I'm not sure how that would even – I don't know. When I think of the way James plays and how he plays the game and his style of play, I know I was a teammate of his my rookie year. It just doesn't seem like his culture. And not to say that James doesn't work hard or play, you know what I'm saying? I just don't think – I don't see James Harden fitting in with the Knicks. I just can't see it. What makes more sense and what's more probable to me is him going back home, which is LA, to the Clippers. I know people were wanting the Lakers to throw their hat in the ring. I don't think there's any legitimacy with that, just because of the simple fact of how much they'll have to give up. They don't have the cap space for it. I believe they're not willing to give up their assets in Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves. They did extend the qualified offers to those guys as well. So with that being said, any team that offers them, the Lakers have the right to match it. Doesn't mean the Lakers can match every one, because I believe Austin Reeves will get offers from other teams that the Lakers won't be able to match. It's just kind of his preference. Same could be possible for Rui Hachimura. We never know. So I think the Clippers make the most sense at this point. Who knows who could sneak in? I think that's such a wild card to have right now. And I honestly would like to say this year he's going to control a lot of free agency, because I believe he'll take his time and try to find the best suitor. So I want to know what you think and where you think he's going to land, because it can go any way, which way. There's a couple of teams that can sneak in late. We never know. And I wouldn't completely count Houston out. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're as strong as they were at the beginning, or like Phoenix, because they got Brad Beal now. But who do you think, or where you see James fitting in, and why you think he would be a good fit in any of those places?
I think if the Knicks decided to take him, they'd have to get really, really creative with some of that cap space, right? They're going to have to really it's going to be like a puzzle, right? You're going to have to figure out where to shift players, pieces, how to make that money fit. But then when you talk about the Clippers, I think when they had a disappointing, playoff situation, they might want someone like Harden, right? They might want to work a little bit harder to get somebody like him on that team for those reasons, right? They obviously want to win. So I don't know. Right now, I lean toward the Clippers, but that's just my thoughts from what I read. I also read something about the Heat may even have a little interest in him, which is interesting. I didn't do any further reading on that, but
I don't know. I can't see the Heat really pursuing that as much as I consider pursuing them trying to get Dame. I think Dame is probably the number one priority on their list. I also think that's another interesting one to watch out for because there's words going around that Dame was upset that Portland did end up using that third pick. He wanted them to shop it and go get somebody that's a superstar next to him that's already a seasoned player to help build a championship caliber team. And Portland does feel like that old Dame net, and I feel like that's such a repetitive drum. I don't want to say too much. I want them looking at this podcast crazy, but I do think it is finally time to finally make that decision. Are we going to give Dame the team that we think he deserves, or that he, in my opinion, deserves from them because of his tenure there, the respect he's given that franchise? He's never been in any trouble. You've never heard anything bad about him. And every year he's always came in and put the franchise on his back. Everybody knows Portland is Damian Lillard's team, city, however you want to put it. Yeah. He'll probably go down as the greatest Portland Trailblazer. That's no disrespect to, Brandon Roy. Unfortunate career. Bill Walton was a great player too, but I think when you look at it, Dame's top 75, multiple selections, All-Star, All NBA teams. So I think it's a no-brainer when it comes to that. So I do believe that Portland owes that to him, and if not, then I know Portland's gonna respect his wishes as to finding him the next destination to where he can go. And just to me, the way his mindset is and how Dame operates, I just see that being Miami, because there's words that he doesn't want to be a super team. You heard Dame say it in his raps. You heard him come out and say it in live streams, interviews, however you want to, see it. Anytime you see on social media, he doesn't want to be a part of a super team. That's why I think he would have won. They got a chance to be with Harden and with LeBron. So he could have went to LA easily. I feel like these past 2 years, 1 of the 2 years. So I just truly believe that Miami is the best fit for him, because obviously Jimmy doesn't consider himself a superstar, but in this league, I got to say he is. Doing what he does is magical, being a two-way specialist that he is, and just he's always playing hard. So you kind of team him up with Jimmy and Bam. That's to him, that's not a super team. That's 3 good players, and then now you knowing the Heat culture, knowing how the role players are going to play and operate, because they always produce the best role players in the NBA, it seems like. Consistently, they do a great job of developing their guys and do a great job of picking and finding underrated or under the radar talent. So I think Miami makes the most sense for Dame at this point. I also have mentioned I like Milwaukee. I don't know what Milwaukee's willing to give up or do, because I don't see them getting Dame and keeping Chris Middleton maybe. I definitely could see a Dame and Drew Holiday trade happening. I'm not 100% sure, but if I had to throw a dark horse in there, that's probably where I would throw. What team I would throw to come out with Damian Lillard is probably going to be Milwaukee, if it's not the Miami Heat. So I think between those two, between James and Dame, I think a lot of guys are going to be waiting to see where they're playing next year, because a lot of these teams are priorities. There's just some bigger fish in the sea, and those guys just happen to be the 2 biggest out there right now.
For sure. Now, let me ask you this, kind of rolling back to the 76ers. How do you feel, how do you think Joel Embiid is going to feel losing Harden? Obviously they had a great situation going together. I personally, I've been thinking, who would fill those shoes to play with someone like Joel? But what do you see for the 76ers after Harden leaves?
I've seen a bunch of things, and after being a part of a team, being a part of a sports world, I know a lot of the times there are some poker faces because there are things that you have to do as a professional and cover up the media so it doesn't make distractions for the organization or the team. I think people can kind of see from the outside looking in that this thing was kind of going to blow up a little bit. I just hate it because I feel like now it's hard. It's a hard conversation to really have when it comes to firing a coach, a great coach, Doc Rivers. He is a good coach, but then, you have these games or records or, his game 7 records. Like it just doesn't get done. I don't want to put that all on Doc because at the end of the day, Doc's not out there playing for them. So you can't just completely blame Doc for guys not making shots and missing assignments or just not locked in or engaged in games at all. So everybody deserves a little bit of blame, but I do hate that they fired him. And now I feel like that was kind of in the hopes of, keeping James or, making the interest a little bit more appealing to him to stay there for the visual side. But I think his mindset is somewhere else. I think he wanted to give it another try. And now I think that his time there is up. And I think I think this is a good chance for them to blow it up if this is the case, because I don't see – we've been trusting the process for a long time, and hats off to Joel Embiid because even when Philly was down bad after he came back from injury after injury, he has helped put that team back to where it needs to be. Unfortunately, 4 or 5 years ago, the shot heard around the world with Kawhi had cost them possibly a finals trip. They're definitely going to be in conference finals after that. Definitely could see that team getting to the finals. They did not bring that team back, which was unfortunate. I thought that was a mistake made when you had, Ben Simmons at the top of his game, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Embiid. I don't think you could have asked for a better solid 5. So I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect time to kind of just start fresh and start over. You got your guy in Tyrese Maxey, who they believe is a max player, and they will not include in any trade deals because they're going to ride that out, and rightfully so. I think he's a player that the city can fall in love with and has fallen in love with. But Joel Embiid decides to leave. I think the keys are handed to him. I think you can keep Tobias Harris if that's the case. Tobias Harris was a 20-point scorer in the games before he got to Philly. I think it increases his role back to scoring, which is what he ultimately wants. And he said a great quote, and I don't think a lot of people respected it, and I don't think the Philly fans respected it either because they just kind of shrugged it off. But he's like, typical Philly fans want to trade me for a crumble cookie, but you won't find – you won't get – yeah, but he was like, you won't get back another 6'9" forward who almost shoots 40%, guards the other team's best player that plays 79-plus games or 70-plus games, which is true. Like, how many 6'9" guys in our NBA, even superstars, all-stars, the premier guys, how many of them have made it 70-game seasons in the last 3 or 4 years? You see Paul George and Kawhi dealing with injuries. LeBron has been dealing with some lately in his career. KD has had some freak accidents happen. Giannis had some accidents happen in the Miami Heat. So it holds true and it holds weight to what he is saying and how he has his case stated and backed up. So I think I would kind of just try to build around those two. And if not, you obviously have Maxey. I believe he's going to get the max contract coming up. I did see, however, that Kyrie is also someone to look out for. If James decides to leave and Joel decides to stay, that if Kyrie is not getting to Phoenix, because that is also a preferred destination of his, that Philly could be a place to watch out for Kyrie. So I think Philly has a lot of interesting ways to go about their situation. I know Fred VanVleet had tweeted out after the finals was over to kind of try to convince Joel Embiid to stay and team up with him. I do know that speculation is Houston's going to go offer VanVleet 2 years, 86, which is max for 2 years. Don't see him turning that down, but then again, I could be wrong because he turned down the rest of his money in Toronto. So at these points, it just depends on what these guys' mindsets are, mentalities are, and where they want to be at, because Fred VanVleet is an NBA champion. So it's either, you want to compete for more championships to add to your legacy, or, which I'm not going to knock you for, and nobody ever should, I want to go make this money so I can make sure that my family, my people, we don't ever again have to worry about working for as long as we live. So everybody at the end of the day wants the financial freedom and, be able to live the life to be able to do what you want freely and, stress free. So money isn't everything, but money can't take care of a lot of things. So people like to say money can't buy you happiness, but it can also lead to happiness because it can also lead to relieving a lot of stress. So that's how I feel for Philly. I think they could, like I said, I think they can build around Tyrese Maxey. I think they have to be patient. I think Philly fans don't really want to do that because it's going to require a lot of patience for them to blow everything up. But depending on what they give, if they act anything like they did with the Ben Simmons situation, then it would be a hard time for Tyrese Maxey. But I think he's willing to take that on his shoulders. It'd be interesting to see him become the vocal point of a franchise because he's earned it. So,
sure. Yeah. Well said. Sorry, I sneezed right in the middle of all of that. I hope that wasn't picked up like ridiculously loud.
Yeah. I actually was scrolling across Twitter before we started this, and I seen an interesting trade scenario for the Sixers that I think could give them some pieces back. Obviously, it's hard to replace Harden, but there was a marked trade that was involving James Harden and PJ Tucker to the Clippers, and the Sixers will receive Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, and Robert Covington, along with Nicholas Batum and a 2028 first-round pick and a 2030 first-round pick.
Interesting.
I don't know how much better you get than that if I'm them, especially with what's out there in the market and where guys are wanting to go. Also, I could see, before I head on to that scenario, I could also see Dame in Philly. That's a possible thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if the sign and trade goes through as clean as we would like it to, I don't know how it would get there because I don't see it being for James. I don't see the sign and trade happening that way. But if it comes about, I can see that happening. But to not get off the topic of the Sixers, I think that's a great trade for them. You get back a bunch of wing and assets, and it gives you also assets to have move. Terrence Mann is really young. A lot of people like him or high on him. He's a high energy guy. He's reliable. He's going to play, hard every night. Norman Powell's an NBA champion, gives you championship pedigree on a team. Robert Covington is a 3-and-D guy that everybody would love to have, or a guy that they would love to have on their team. And it brings a Philly guy back home. That's where Robert Covington got his career really started. He made a name for himself in Philly. So, yeah, Nicholas Batum, another wing who's been around the league for a very long time that could help. I think that's something to start with. Now, what they want to do with those pieces and some of the young guys that they already have in Philly with Daniel House, Shake Milton, DeAnthony Melton.
Right.
So it just depends. They can go any way they want. So I think that's probably going to be their best scenario, so to speak. I couldn't give it to you. I could give it to you, the whole spiel, but that's just kind of what I see fit for them.
Love it. Man, there's so much that's going to go on over the next week, 2 weeks, even month. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, we keep saying how we're going to transition to football. And it's getting hard. It's getting extremely hard with basketball and the way they're doing. There are some great things happening in baseball. There are some great things happening in football that I won't forget to speak about when that time comes. But within these next 2 weeks, the NBA is coming in hot. So it's going to be really hard to let this one slide or let this time go because there's so many things to talk about.
Sure.
It will be it will be very interesting.
We will talk about football, we swear. I want to talk about. We'll even talk about soccer because I did want to talk about the Mbappe thing that they want to sell him, but we'll get into soccer eventually too. That's not as pressing, I think, but we'll get there. We swear.
Yeah, man. I think this free agency has the ability to check out what the NBA is going to look. Also, let's not forget about Draymond Green.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I mean. No, I don't know. Do you see him staying with the Warriors? Do you see him? I mean,
you never know.
We talked about this. What was it? A smart move? Was it like a creative way to create?
I'm not sure. We never will know what's going to happen in these free agencies. We never know who could persuade who or sell it to who that this is going to be the right fit for you. I think it's going to take a lot to pry Draymond Green away from Golden State because, as I've always said, it's the perfect marriage. They're not for a championship. They're not a championship team without him. They don't win 4 championships without Draymond Green. I don't care what nobody says. Put out you want. Even when they have Kevin Durant, if Draymond Green is not a part of those teams, there's no championships going on in Golden State. So, and I think his career shaped out the way it has been because he has played in Golden State. It worked for both ways. I think his career is a little different. I still think he's the same Draymond, hard-nosed playing, talk trash. But I think because of how they constructed that team is why it's a perfect marriage. And he's helped change the game. He's the reason why there's a lot of guys or a lot of teams playing small ball lineups and guarding things differently and putting guys like PJ Tucker at the 5 now. Well, you could thank Draymond Green for that. Everybody hated that experiment that Houston did, but and that just goes to show you the impact that those 3 have had on our game today. So I think you got to tip your hat to him. You got to kind of just let him see, does he want to explore life outside of Golden State, or if he just wants to sit there, retire and go to State. I think they made it very clear that they would much rather see that thing out to the end. I know if anybody's ever watched The Last Dance or, true basketball fans, they watched it and were mad that, Jerry Krause wanted to blow the Bulls up and go the route he went, and Jordan and them would have rather just rode it out to the sunset and waited till somebody beat them. So I don't think you split up a good thing. I know the Warriors aren't 6-0 in the finals. I know they blew a 3-1 lead, but I also do know that if there's no one you're not going to count out on the Western Conference, it's definitely always going to be them. As long as those 3 are together, I think it's hard to count them out. They have the pedigree. They know what it takes. They have 2 of the deadliest shooters to ever pick up a basketball. One is already the greatest shooter to ever pick up a basketball. So I don't see – it's hard to not see Draymond Green in a Warriors jersey at this point. But if it makes money, it makes sense. So it kind of just depends on where he wants to go with that. So I think that's the best way to go about his situation.
Right on. Makes sense.
I did want to talk about, however, they have not dropped any other knowledge or information on it. I did want to do some asking around and prying around and see what's going on, but I have noticed that there is something going on in Cleveland that has not broke the surface yet. And now all of a sudden, Darius Garland is available for trade. I never could have seen that coming. All-star point guard, 2 years ago, one of the focal points. You chose him between him and Colin Sexton. That's why Colin's not there anymore. I don't know the route they're going to go if you do trade Darius. So I thought that was very interesting in itself as well. I thought, DG and Donovan Mitchell were a great pickup together as far as a backcourt, but I don't know what the front office has in store. I don't know what their plans are moving forward. I thought Darius Garland would be their point guard for a very long time, but to see that he's came up for availability in the trade market is also another thing for something to look out for. I don't think Trae Young leaving Atlanta is something anymore. I do think John Collins going to Utah is the shocker so far after the Bradley Beal trade, because nobody saw that coming. We've heard speculations for the last 2 to 3 years how him and Trae either bump heads or this, that, or the third. Like I said, guys, our business first. They're going to put on their poker faces. They're going to be professional, but there were reports going on about Atlanta, and they kept it, out of the media. They try their best to do it. You've seen some media blows between Trae Young and some reporters, but there were some speculation that Trae Young and Collins didn't really always see eye to eye, I guess, so to speak. And that's going to happen in the game of basketball. It's always going to be that way. So, but to actually see that get split, I think it makes you question where Atlanta is going, because you see Clint Capella's up for a lot of trade talks, and so that kind of leaves you without your 2 most, premier bigs. I know they got the young kid, Griffin. So, it's going to be interesting to see where they go.
Fun-filled weeks coming up. Can't wait to see. And then I swear we are going to talk about football. It is coming.
Eventually, yeah.
Especially for me. Football starts for me in about 6 weeks. I got about 5-6 weeks before it really hits me anyways. So we're getting there.
Yeah, we are getting we're going to get there.
I don't have. I'm sorry. I'm reading. So I'm getting more and more of the feeds coming up here, but
you're good. Shoot.
Anyways,
before the podcast does end, though, I'm a Reds fan. We are from Cincinnati in Middletown, but I'm still an Ohio guy. I gotta give Elly De La Cruz his flowers.
Oh, really? Okay.
I know we're not transitioning to baseball, ladies and gentlemen, but if you're not paid attention to the Reds, or if you're not paid attention to social media at all, this guy has literally brought life back into Cincinnati Reds, into the organization, and just an electric player in general into the city, the sport. He obviously hit for the cycle a few games ago, which hasn't been done since like 1970 something. I believe it's 72. Whoever let him fall under the radar to Cincinnati, we appreciate it because we absolutely love the guy. But ever since he's came about into the Cincinnati Reds rotation, ever since we called him up, they've been on the winning streak. And there's been nothing short of special, nothing short of great. So didn't want to get that out there before he keeps rolling and doing the things that he are doing. We cannot ignore that because the guy's playing amazing. Or we cannot ignore Ohtani for breaking Babe Ruth's record for starting most starts as a starter pitcher and hitting more home runs in the same month. So got to give those two guys the utmost respect, the utmost credit for what they're doing in their sport, because it's definitely changing the way the game is being played.
Yeah, Cincinnati's got some wins. I mean, it's a good place to be right now. And then Joey Votto obviously making his return, getting a home run, first night back.
Yeah.
The city lit up.
That was crazy to watch for sure.
Yeah, the city is definitely. And the rumor is today the Reds actually moved their game up to start sooner because of the Taylor Swift concert. Did you know that a concert coming to town as big as Taylor Swift could actually make the Reds start their game sooner?
Yeah, obviously. I wouldn't have believed that. I did see Joe Barrow talk about people asked him if he was going to the Taylor Swift concert though. So who knows?
If anybody can get tickets last minute, it would be that guy. So
right,
he's got the keys to the city, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Trades going on, a lot to talk about. Man, we're going to have our eye out, watching Twitter, watching all the feeds. We're going to see what's going on, what's shaking loose in the NBA world. We also have a lot coming up with baseball and football. We are going to tackle it. We will be there for you, we promise. You can find us everywhere on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, every single podcast platform that exists. You can also find us on YouTube at Sports and Ish. You guys have an amazing week. Don't forget to leave us some feedback, rate, and review us. See you guys soon.